The courtroom smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper, a place where lives were measured not in years lived, but in years taken away. It was a Tuesday morning in New Orleans, and the Hall of Justice was crowded. Lawyers shuffled papers. Guards exchanged glances. Families whispered in low voices, waiting for a decision that could change everything. At the front of it all sat Judge Harold Grant. Harold was 63 years old, with gray streaking his once dark hair and deep lines etched into his face. But what people noticed first was the wheelchair. 10 years ago, a car accident had taken his ability to walk, leaving him with a body that didn't listen to him anymore and a heart that had slowly hardened. Once, he was known as a fair and patient man. Now people called him something else, strict, unbending, even cruel. His gavel struck once. "All rise," the bailiff called, and the room obeyed. This was just another case in his long career, or so it seemed. At the defendant's table sat Daniel Ross, a man in his late 30s, wrists cuffed, his shoulders heavy as if the weight of the world sat on them. He was accused of fraud, obstruction, and resisting arrest. To most in that room, he was just another criminal. Another name in a file. Another person to be sent away. But to Daniel, this was his last chance to prove he wasn't the man they said he was. The prosecutor spoke sharply, his words like knives cutting through the silence. "Your Honor, the evidence is clear. We ask for no less than 15 years. The defendant has misled this court, wasted its time, and shown no respect for the law." Daniel stayed quiet. His public defender barely moved anymore, having fought and failed for hours. The air felt heavy, and everyone already knew how this would end. Judge Grant looked at the man before him, not with compassion but with calculation. To him the law was black and white. And Daniel Ross. He was already halfway out the door in chains. The judge lifted the file on his desk. It was thick, filled with reports, statements and accusations. But nowhere in those pages was the sound of Daniel's truth. Nowhere was the cry of his little girl waiting at home. No one in that room saw the man he really was, because no one wanted to. The gavel was about to fall again, sealing a man's fate. And then the door opened. Soft footsteps echoed against the floor, pulling every eye toward the back of the room. A little girl no older than 7 walked in, her small hands gripping the hem of a faded yellow dress. Her hair was tied into 2 neat braids, her shoes scuffed from long walks she shouldn't have had to make. She didn't look afraid. She didn't even look confused. She walked straight down the aisle, past rows of staring strangers, past lawyers who whispered, past guards who didn't know whether to stop her, and she stood in front of the judge's bench. "Who is this child?" Judge Grant demanded, his voice sharper than he intended. And that was the moment everything began to change. The room held its breath. The judge stared down at the small figure standing before him. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low but firm. The girl raised her chin. Her voice was clear, unshaken. "My name is Hope," she said softly. "And that man is my daddy." The courtroom rippled with whispers. Some scoffed, others leaned forward to see better. Hope pointed to the man at the defendant's table. Daniel Ross. His head lifted slowly, his eyes wide, filled with shock and something else. Something like shame. Judge Grant frowned. "Little girl, this is no place for you. Bailiff, escort her out." But before the bailiff could take a step, Hope spoke again. "Wait, please." Her small hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I came here to make a deal." The judge arched an eyebrow. "A deal?" he repeated, his tone almost mocking. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling now but still brave. "If you let my daddy go, I'll make you walk." The entire courtroom erupted, first in startled gasps, then in laughter and disbelief. Lawyers smirked, the prosecutor chuckled outright. Even a few guards exchanged amused looks. Judge Grant's fingers tightened on the arms of his wheelchair. "What did you just say?" Hope looked up, her big brown eyes steady. "I said I can help you walk again." The judge felt a pang in his chest, anger, pain. Or the memory of a hope he buried long ago? It had been 10 years since he last stood on his own 2 feet. 10 years of doctors, treatments, false promises, and pitying looks. Now this little girl dared to offer him what the world could not. "This is a courtroom," he snapped. "Not a place for fairy tales." "Maybe," Hope whispered, "but fairy tales start with someone who stops believing." Her words landed like a stone dropped in still water. For a brief moment the room was quiet again. Daniel Ross stood, his cuffs clinking against the table. "Please, Your Honor," he said, his voice cracking. "Just let her speak. That's all I ask." Judge Grant hesitated, staring at the girl. There was no fear in her, only a strange, calm certainty. "You think your father is innocent?" he asked. Hope nodded firmly. "He is. People lied about him. They didn't tell the truth because he tried to help someone who couldn't pay their rent. He doesn't steal. He gives." The prosecutor scoffed. "Your Honor, this is absurd." But Judge Grant held up a hand. "Quiet." The girl stepped closer, her small hand brushing the cold wood of the bench. "You've been in that chair a long time, haven't you?" she said gently. "I know you miss walking. I know because I pray for you." The judge felt a strange warmth stir in his legs. Faint, almost imaginary, but real enough that he noticed. His hands gripped the wheels tighter. He hadn't felt anything there in years. "What are you doing?" he whispered. Hope tilted her head. "Nothing. You've always wanted to walk. Maybe you just needed someone to believe with you." The room had gone utterly still now. The laughter was gone. The prosecutor's smile faded. The guards looked uncertain. And for the first time in 10 years, Judge Harold Grant felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Possibility. The room seemed to shrink around them. All eyes were fixed on Judge Harold Grant as his fingers trembled on the edge of the bench. That faint warmth in his legs was now undeniable. It spread slowly, crawling up from his feet to his knees, alien yet strangely familiar. He swallowed hard. "Bring me the arresting officer's report," he ordered suddenly. The prosecutor blinked. "Your Honor, with respect, the verdict." "Do it," Judge Grant snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut the tension in half. Files shuffled. Papers passed hands. Witnesses were recalled. And as the courtroom churned with hurried motion, a different kind of silence settled over the room, the kind that comes when something bigger than rules begins to move. Hope stood perfectly still, her eyes never leaving the judge. Daniel Ross watched too, his heart pounding against his chest. For years, he had been treated as a problem, a nuisance, a criminal. But now, for the first time, someone powerful was looking at him. Truly looking. The evidence began to unravel, one thread at a time. A missing statement here. Fabricated signature there. Witnesses whose stories didn't match. The case against Daniel began to crumble like dry paper. Judge Grant's breathing quickened. He leaned forward. "This isn't justice," he murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. And then, as if to answer the unspoken battle inside him, his right leg twitched. Gasps echoed. The bailiff stepped back. The prosecutor's mouth fell open. Judge Grant gripped the armrests, eyes wide, and slowly, unsteadily, he pushed himself upward. The room froze. For a heartbeat it seemed impossible. But there he was, standing. Shaking, sweating, leaning hard against the bench, but standing nonetheless. Hope smiled. Just a small, knowing smile. "I told you," she whispered. Judge Grant sat back down, tears brimming in his eyes. He looked at Daniel, really looked at him not as a case number but as a man. Father. Soul. "Mr. Ross," the judge said, his voice hoarse yet firm, "this court has failed you. The charges against you are dismissed." The chains clattered as the bailiff unlocked them. Daniel sank to his knees, arms open wide as Hope ran to him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "She kept her promise," he whispered, holding her tight. The judge turned away for a moment, composing himself. "Mr. Ross, your record will be cleared. And This court owes you an apology." Hope turned back at the doorway, her small hand wrapped in her father's. The judge called out, "Hope." He paused. "Thank you," he said softly. She nodded, her braids swaying. "Now you can believe again." The heavy doors closed behind them, leaving the courtroom still as stone. No one laughed now. Not the lawyers, not the guards, not even the man who once believed he'd never stand again. For the first time in 10 years, Judge Harold Grant felt something stir inside him that no law book, no trial, no sentence had given him. Second chance. Let us know in the comments section what you think about this video. Comment and subscribe to this channel.